Welcome to this video tutorial with me, Kate, and what I want to do on this one is overview a little bit of all the theories. It's provide an introduction to theories, and then I am going to focus on functionalism. Okay, so you will need your induction booklet, and we are picking it up on activity 7. So what I want you to think about is what shapes our behaviour. Is it your parents? Is it society? Is it what you read in the newspapers? Or do you have a little bit more free will, free reign? Do we control our own destiny, or are there pressures that determine our actions? And do we have the freedom to choose our own actions? Now, sociologists disagree on to what extent do we have free will, on the other hand, or we are influenced by external social pressures. Okay, and depending on that answer depends on what type of sociologist you are. Okay, so to give you a little bit of an overview to answer some of those questions, your sociological theories are split up into this way, and you may want to note this diagram down somewhere on a piece of paper. So sociology is split into this idea of we are studying the social world as we see it. Not all sociologists agree with what they find when they observe it, but I'll just give you a bit of an overview. Okay, so firstly, you've got some sociologists that see society on a social system level. So that means they are looking at society as a whole. They are looking at the big picture. They're looking at it on a macro level. And these can be split into two. You've got those that see on the society as a whole that there is an agreement occurring, that's consensus, and they are functionalist, and they believe that all the separate parts of society are all working together to create this harmony. And then there's another group of sociologists who argue that the different parts in society are actually in conflict with one another. And we've got the Marxist, who would argue that there is a class conflict. So the upper class are in conflict with the working class. And you've got your feminist, who argue that there is a conflict between males and females, and that they're arguing that we live in a male-dominated society, and that is called patriarchy. Now, not all sociologists look at society as a whole. Some sociologists prefer to look at how people act and react to one another. So they'll look at it on the micro level, so on the small scale. And they are called your symbolic interactionist. And they want to know, how do we act with one another? How do we react? How do we act in a classroom, for example? How do we respond to our teachers? How do we act in a home? And so on. And then your last sociologist are your postmodernist. Put simply, they argue that all of these ones are out of date, and that society has changed, and that we need a new theory, a new postmodern theory, in order to explain it. Okay, so I want you to copy that diagram out and add it to your folders. Please pause the podcast, the video tutorial, and do that for me now, please. So the remainder of this video tutorial is going to focus on the functionalist. Okay, so your functionalist, they see society as a whole. They look at it as a bigger picture, and they use something called the organic analogy. And basically, they believe that all the separate parts of the body work together to make the body work as a whole, in the same way as all the parts in society work together to make society work as a whole. Okay, so what we did in class is that we labelled some post-it notes of the different body parts, and we stuck them to each other. Okay, just to see that all these different parts are working together to create a functioning human being. And this is what functionalists call the organic analogy. It's like a human body. Okay, so what parts do you think that these body parts are represented in society? So this will help you complete activity 8. Okay, so they're referring to things like the family, education, the media, religion, the criminal justice system, the government, the welfare state. Okay, these are all parts of society that are working together to create society to function as a whole. Okay. They also argue that society has basic needs or functional prerequisites which also must be met if it is to survive, and one of the important needs is to create social order. And basically social order is everybody is doing what they should be doing. Okay, so functionalism, society is like the human body, all the separate organs work together to make the body as a whole work. Okay. So functionalism, society is like a human body, and they see society as a social system based on this idea of consensus. So it's a little bit different from your conflict theories. The various parts of society are working together to maintain social order. This is this sense of agreement, this idea that people are acting in harmony. Okay, so you should be able to fill that in your booklet. So consensus, that means an agreement of all the members of the group. And there are other parts of society, are the other institutions, the family, the education system and the political system. So here's an example to see how functionalists see the family in society. So what is the function of the family? Well, the family socialises new members of society and teaches them the norms and values which are essential for social life. Okay. This allows us to feel part of a group. This is this idea of social solidarity, that we are feeling part of a group, we feel a sense of belonging. Okay, we've got something in common with other members. The family then works together with another part which benefits society as a whole. So it works with the education system to continue the process of socialisation that was begun in the family. And in this way, the institutions are working together to maintain that social order. So just reflect, what is meant by social order, what is meant by social solidarity, and where will we learn the norms and values of society? Okay, so just to review, social order is that there is this feeling of harmony, that people are doing this agreement on norms and values. Social solidarity is that they are feeling part of a group. And where do we learn this? Through the family and through education. So if the function of society is to learn the norms and values, what happens if they're broken? So what if people start picking their nose? Or streaking? Or shoplifting? Or, as extreme cases in 2011, rioting. Okay. So these are examples of social disorder. So as a reaction to all these, is that people give disapproving looks. They might provide sanctions. So the police might punish people. The family might provide informal sanctions, like a disapproving look, or grounding them, or telling them off, and so on. Okay, so to help you complete activity 9, so how do you think the family and education work together? So you should be able to answer that because I've already done that already. So the family starts off the socialisation process, and education continues with this, and it creates social order because we then become socialised into the norms and values of the society as a whole. How does it explain social disorder? Well, it recognises that it occurs and that we use sanctions to avoid the social disorder coming too bad. So it keeps it under control by disapproving looks, through informal sanctions and through formal sanctions such as punishments from the police. 2 criticisms of this theory. It's too nice. Okay, so Marxists would criticise it because they will say that it is there is too much conflict in society. It ignores the dark sides of the family. It ignores abuse, violence, and so on. Another criticism of this theory is from feminists. It ignores patriarchy. It ignores male domination. Just to review what is meant by consensus, you should be able to answer that. And I've also mentioned what is meant by macro. You should be able to answer that. So fill them in. Okay. Okay, so this just ends the first part of the podcast about functionalist. Okay, so you should be able to fill it in. If you've got any questions, please either Wamedu me or email me, or on Moodle, or ask Dan, exactly the same. Okay, so thank you for listening, and I will see you soon.